Today's video is going to be about soap making. I'm not going to go step by step how to make soap because I actually made a video about that. It's on my mom's channel, so I'll put it up top to where you guys can see that. Although if you are interested in another video like that or more videos about soap, let me know. I'd totally be open to that. But today I'm just going to show you guys the overall process because it's a fun hobby that I like to do, and I wanted to tell you why I like to make soap and the benefits of it. So really the main reason I make soap is just because it's better for you. There is so many nasty, bad chemicals in store-bought soap, and it's unfortunately not just in soap. It's in toothpaste, it's in shampoo, conditioner, makeup, any kind of cosmetic type product it's in. And you know, you may think, oh well, it's not that big of a deal, I've used it for years, but your skin is your biggest organ, and it will just drink up stuff and take it in. There's a really neat thing called the Skin Deep database that you can go and plug in ingredients and it will give you a profile. And there's stuff that's in soap, toothpaste, shampoo, conditioner, makeup, hairspray, perfume, all these things that, you know, most of us use on a daily basis that have been proven to cause cancer or have been linked to it, that are known irritants. It's crazy. So I prefer to make soap. If we don't have some that I've made on hand, I always try to buy like Dr. Bronner's at the store or something like that that doesn't have as many harsh chemicals. Sometimes you can't get around it, but sometimes you can, and this is kind of a way to get around it. I took a class several years ago, maybe 7 or 8 years ago, on how to make soap for this reason, and it's just fun. It's fun to make, I think it's economical, and it's super satisfying to make this whole batch of soap and have all these bars that will last you maybe a year. I mean, the recipe I'm going to make makes about 35 bars. It depends on how thick you're going to cut them. That will last a long time, even for 4 people like us. So this is some soap that I made recently. I made this batch, I actually made this whole batch for someone here on our YouTube channel. And then this is a batch that I just made kind of for fun. So I'm going to put this on Etsy, and I'll put our link. It's the Pressley Girls on Etsy, but I'll put the link in the description so you can find that. But as you can see, you can use all kinds of pretty colorants. You guys can't smell it, but it smells good. You can use different essential oils, and you can really have fun with it. Another really fun thing about making soap is there's so many different recipes, meaning not just color, but ingredients, and so you can really kind of tailor exactly what you want. Whether you have maybe dry skin, like I do, and you want something that's going to be really nourishing, really moisturizing, or maybe you want something that's going to be exfoliating, but you can really change up the recipe and get exactly what you want. And you can also get the exact kind of scent you want. If you want some kind of, you know, odd cocktail of scents, you can get whatever you want. So just another fun thing about making soap. I also feel like it's just preserving traditions of Appalachia, doing things with your hands, making things for yourself, keeping as many of the things like at home, making your own food, growing your own food, doing this. If you could sew your own clothes, I wish I could do that. All of that is just neat, and it makes me feel like I'm preserving those kind of traditions. So I'm going to take you guys to the kitchen. We're going to go there first, and I will show you the overall process of how to make soap. So these are the ingredients that I'm going to use. I have palm oil. It's sustainable. I try to make sure it is sustainable. You know, you don't want to support the palm trees being cut down. And coconut oil and olive oil. And of course lye. I don't have the lye up here in the house. I try to keep that out of the house because it can be a little bit dangerous. So what I'm basically going to do is combine all these. I'm going to put them in a pot I have on the stove. I'll show you guys that. My recipe calls for 32 ounces of palm oil, so this whole thing is going to go in. 48 ounces of olive oil. I'm just going to pour that in a measuring cup. Well, it's going to be more than a cup because it's 48 ounces. And then this I'm actually going to weigh. I know that's kind of weird. I'm going to weigh it and get it as 32 ounces of weight. So I'm going to get all these in the pot, and then I will meet you guys there. Okay, I didn't do this in the last video, so I just want to kind of address that. I do actually have this on really low heat. You can see that's chunks of coconut oil. I'm just kind of in a hurry today, so I want this to kind of all be one and have it all melted. It'll trace faster that way. For this recipe that I'm using, you do not have to do this, but it will trace faster. The lye is gonna trace it anyway. It's gonna break up the chunks of oil, butter, fat, whatever you're using, because it is so hot. But sometimes it's just easier if you get it all liquefied first. You can see I've got it on a really low temperature back there because this is cold processed soap. It's not hot process. Hot process soap, you do have to add extra heat. It's kind of confusing because I know we're kind of adding heat right now, but this is just to get the oils melted. And hot process soap, most people make it in a crock pot because you have to have constant heat. This is just getting it a little bit melted, will make it easier to trace. But you don't actually have to do this, so if you don't want to do this, that's okay too. Get this melted just a little bit more, and then we'll be ready to get our lye mixture going, and then we'll mix the two together. Alright guys, so the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna make our lye mixture. You wanna be really careful with this. It tells you on the bottle here, lye can be very dangerous. You don't want it in your eyes, you don't want it on your hands, you don't want it in your mouth, anything like that, so you wanna be very careful. That's why I have safety glasses, I have a mask, and I have gloves. You want to be really careful. You also want to do this somewhere where you have good ventilation. You don't want to breathe this stuff. So I've got it outside. This is my garage in here, but this is outside where the fumes are going to dissipate. I'm betting that you'll be able to see once I mix this, the steam. It's going to shoot up really hot, really fast, so you don't want this on you. I also am going to use, this is silicone, but I'm actually going to use a wooden spoon. I just have a plastic container, and we are going to have to weigh it. And then this is important. This is stainless steel. You do not want aluminum or enamel. I've seen some people use glass. I've not had good experience with it. I've had it crack on me several times, which, as you can imagine, is not a good thing. You can use some plastics, but again, I wouldn't really recommend it. Maybe if it was like a super heavy-duty industrial plastic, I would just stick with stainless steel. So I'm going to put on my safety glasses. I'm going to get on my gloves. I'm not going to put my mask on yet until I pour it, but it's still not a bad idea because you don't want to be breathing any kind of fumes. So I'm going to take my scale. For this recipe, I need 15 ounces of lye. So here we go. This lye is really good. You can get it in a powder form, but this is just kind of little chips. So we're just going to pour it in until we get 15 ounces. Alright, now that we have our lye measured out, we're going to add our lye to our water. This is very important. Never, ever, ever add water to lye. It could cause a volcano and just kind of blow up on you and be bad. So, this is where you want your mask. This is going to create fumes immediately, and you do not want to breathe it. You want to make sure that you got everything safe and covered. Let's get it on a good flat surface here. And when you pour this, you know, you just don't want to hover over it. I'm going to pour from over here, and then I'm going to stir, and then I'm going to walk away. As soon as I feel that these little pellets, crystals, whatever you want to call them, as soon as I feel that they are dissolved, I'm going to walk away. So here we go. Look for the steam. So I will say this about the recipe. When I first started out, I tried to make the oil mixture with the lye mixture the exact degrees. There was a lot of running back and forth trying to measure, and I thought that that's how you had to do it. And so after a couple years of doing it like that and some trial and error, I took a class, and we went to this class, and this was a person who made soap professionally, and they made hundreds of bars a week. And they said, we're not going to measure the temperature or anything. We're actually just going to make the mixtures. We're going to put them together when we're ready. Then we're going to put a Walmart bag in a flat rate priority box and pour it in there. And I was like, yeah, this is not going to work at all. And it did. So I have these nice soap molds, but ever since then, I don't worry about trying to get it to a certain degrees or anything like that. I will say I'm going to wait a while for the lye to cool down, because at this point, it's still really hot. And if you start soaping really hot, once it gets into these molds, it's going to heat up regardless. But if it's really hot, you run a little bit of risk of it overheating. So other than that, you really don't have to worry about the temperatures, at least for this recipe. And once I learned that, it kind of was freeing, and it was a lot funner to make. A word about essential oils too. This is actually cedarwood. I'm making this for a certain person. They'll probably know who they are. This is going to be their soap. So I like to use essential oils. I do not like fragrance oils, because fragrance oils are synthetic. That's part of the problem with store-bought soap. So I only use essential oils. These come from the local herb store. They bottle their own. And then a word about colorants. Again, I'm not going to use anything that's fake, anything that's not natural, because the whole point for me is to make this as natural as possible. So for this soap, I'm not sure what I'm going to use yet. I guess I need to be finding that out, huh? But I'll use some kind of natural powdered herb, something that'll give it some color but will also keep it natural. So at this point, I'm just waiting for the lye to cool down a little. Alright guys, so the lye mixture is ready to go in with my oil right here. So this is my lye sitting here, and you can feel how hot it still is. Once it goes into the oil, you got to start mixing, and you can't stop until it traces. So I'm going to use a stick blender, emulsifier, whatever you want to call it. Hope you guys can see that down here on the camera. For essential oils, like I said, I'm using cedarwood. And then I decided for colorant, I'm going to use, this is sandalwood, powdered sandalwood. So that should give it a pretty hue. Once it begins to trace, it's going to look like, kind of, when you make meringue and you see the peaks that you can kind of stick the blender down in it, and then it kind of leaves that impression. That's what trace is. And once it traces, I'm going to pour in the color and the oils, and then you don't have long, and you got to get it in the molds. It's kind of like making fudge. Eventually it will set up, and you don't really have that long to get it in the molds. So here we go. So now that I have my lye in, we got to start mixing. That starts and we just try to pour in the molds evenly. Be careful though, because it's hot. It's much easier with another person. I've done this by myself before, and it's very hard. Just trying to get them as even as I can. We still got a good bit to pour. Boy, it smells good, don't it? Probably get about the rest of it in this one.
Alright, if you'll just hang 10.
Silicone spatulas for this, guys, like this are the best, because then you can really scrape what's left. You don't want to waste any of the soap. So at this point, as it sets up, you can kind of put designs in it if you want, and it'll hold that design. For this, I'm just trying to get it as even as I can. I'm not worried about that. But they make tools where you can make really neat little designs. They even make embellishments that you can put on top of it. But I'll be honest, that kind of, some of those are a little bit synthetic, and as we've said before, or as I've talked about before, the whole point is to get it natural, so I'm not going to do that. So at this point, you can let it set like this. Alright guys, this soap has set for about 48 hours, so we're going to cut it now. You don't want it to really set any more than that, because if it gets too hard, you can't cut it. And then you would essentially have a gigantic soap log. And one of these, as you will see in a minute, would be really hard to use in the shower by itself. These molds are cool because the sides of them just come out. And then you can just pop out the silicone part. I can put a link in the description to where I got them. And then you can just peel them apart. I always have a towel set in here or something, you know, just to catch everything. But yeah, it's just a big old brick of soap. Is all it is. It looks good. You know, it's still soft. Like if I were to push hard, I could dent it a little bit, but it's soft enough to cut, so that's what we want. These silicone liners are awesome. I used to have molds that I lined with wax paper. Oh my lord, that was a nightmare. If you're gonna do this, even just for your family or as a hobby, get the silicone. Alright guys, one thing I like to do, you can see the edges are uneven, I just like to skim off the edges. This works really good for that, but I'll be honest, I don't remember where I got it from. I think it's just like a kitchen implement that come from a thrift store, but if you had a cheese cutter, you could do this with a knife. Let me say that. If you have like a big chef knife, you could do this, but it's just not going to be precise as a soap cutter, which I'll show you guys in a minute. But I like to just get off the excess off the edge. You know, you don't have to go too deep, but... And then these, if you want, you can save these, and in a couple weeks you can like put them in your laundry detergent or something like that. This one really don't have that much of an edge. This is a really cool soap cutter. I got it off of Etsy. I can also put a link to that. This is just like some kind of instrument string, probably a guitar string, and it's wound just like that. So I kind of loosen it when I'm not using it. You can see how loose it is, so it's not under tension, but you gotta tighten it to cut it, because what happens if you don't and you pull it down, the blade will kind of drag through and it doesn't want to come up and it could break. So I just pluck it like a string and just turn it till it sounds like it's... Like that's probably pretty good. You see it bends less now. And you'll know because when you cut, if it's like really bending through the soap instead of making a straight cut, you'll know. The cool thing about this soap cutter is this piece, the closer you put it, the smaller the bar of soap you'll get. So you really get to decide what size you want. So I don't know if you guys could see that, but the blade kind of bent a little bit, and you don't want to do that. It's bad for it. So another thing I do is you can see this has soap on it where it's drugged through the soap. If you don't clean it off, it will drag back through the rest of the bars. That's really not that big of a deal, you know, unless you're really trying to make this for aesthetic wise. But it kind of makes it easier to cut if you wipe that every time. So I just take like a wet paper towel and wipe through it. And that's pretty much it. I mean, it gives you a nice even cut, and then all the bars end up about the same size, which is nice. So this recipe will make about 35 bars, like using these molds about this size of soap, you know, this size. Talking about how I've got the cutter set up. It just depends though on how you want to do it, to how many you're going to get, but it'll at least make 30 bars. But for me, it usually makes 35. And then as far as how to store this, So this is gonna have to cure for the next 4 to 6 weeks. I don't leave it 6 weeks, I just leave it 4, but you wanna put it in a place that's got good ventilation. And for the first while, I won't let it touch itself like that. See how like greasy that is, and see how I can just scrape that with my thumbnail like that? It's because it's soft, which is good because we're cutting it. Now I'm making a mess. But it's gonna get hard. If you were to take a shower with this right now, you could. It's not gonna hurt your skin. The lye is done doing what it's gonna do, but this is what you would get. Like, I can just scrape that away with my fingernail, and if that got wet in the shower for a couple of days, it would just be mushy gushy mess. I set it on a piece of wax paper on the floor somewhere and just like, you know, just space the bars out. Space the bars out like so, and then, you know, after it's been like 2 weeks, if you're like me and you don't really have that much room, and maybe you're making more soap and you have to make more room, then you can kind of stack them on each other, but at least for the first while, let them breathe. So this turned out pretty good. It's this beautiful brown color. This is, color wise, I love it. The Cedarwood, as you guys seen, that we used was more of a red color, but it turned out kind of brown, which I think is actually prettier. I hope you guys enjoyed watching the video as much as I enjoyed making this soap. It's honestly probably one of my favorite things to do. I'll put the link in the description for the full step-by-step video that I did for my mom's channel. Also, the pink soap that I showed at the beginning of the video, I'm going to list that on our Etsy if you guys are interested. We're on Etsy under the Pressley Girls, but I'll also put a link in the description down below. Wanted to give you guys another close-up. I'm pretty pleased with this. I just love the brown color. I love how it turned out. And it smells really good. It's cedarwood, so it's really woodsy. I actually made this whole batch for someone on our YouTube channel, so you probably know who you are. You wanted a woodsy scent. If anyone else is interested in a whole batch of soap, you can just drop us a comment below. One last thing before I go, I just wanted to state, this is not the only way to make soap. I'm not perfect. I'm not by no means like a super professional. This is just how I do it. I've done it this way for years. I really enjoy it. We hope that you guys enjoyed this video, and we will see you at the next one.